right, okay. Good morning. Joined here by our police leadership and public safety leadership. Going to cover a lot of what's happened in the last year on the public safety front. Prior to COVID, we would do a end-of-year recap in the mayor's office, and we wanted to get back to doing that today. So what we're going to break down for you is a little bit of the data around violent crime, less violent crime, what we're doing around traffic initiatives, and then of course the fire department investments that we've made over the last couple years and how they're manifesting themselves in city life. I'd like to thank the city council that's behind me. They've been unwavering in their commitment and support to the Jersey City Police Department and Fire Department, and I think the results are fairly compelling. We're going to go slide by slide. We have 6 or 7 slides that we want to talk through. I'm going to hand off at various points to our Public Safety Director, Jim Shea, and he'll dig into a little detail. The first slide that you're looking at today, so we could just jump right into it, is dealing with homicides and shootings. The important thing here is trend, not the actual data. We still have a week left in the year, of course, but we're on target for the lowest number of homicides since records have been kept in Jersey City. It's quite a significant accomplishment. When we took office, on average, there was mid-20s in number of homicides per year. This year we are at 12. That is a very, very different trend than you've seen in cities across the country, and we're very, very proud of the investments we've made and ultimately saving lives here. I'm going to pass it over to Director Jim Shea if he wants to add anything specific on that, and then we'll go on to other sorts of data around crime.
Yes, good morning. The most important thing I think I'd like to say about the homicides just is to reiterate what the mayor said. We don't go for 1 year. We want to look at a trend. We want to be sure that we're sustaining any progress we're making. So we're very happy that we've taken the average from around the mid-20s to now the mid-teens. So if we have a bad year like last year, our bad year is 23, not in the 30s. And eventually we hope we'll have a good year and it'll be in single digits. We want to keep improving on it. Success having a lot of fathers. I have to say most important, of course, is the police officers and the detectives who are out there every day working to keep these numbers low. Next, the Hudson County Prosecutor is a phenomenal partner in homicides. The Hudson County Prosecutor's Office has closed 10 of the 12. In addition to only having 12, they've closed 10 of them by arrest. That's an unbelievable clearance number. Around the country, you see clearances on homicides sometimes in the 30s, 30% range. They've closed 10 out of 12. So that helps us. For instance, the last homicide we had, they've already arrested the gentleman who is charged with it, and he's also charged in 2 others. So since we know people don't just do one, they do multiple, the fact that they're getting these arrests very quickly is helping us keep the numbers down. In addition, we have federal partners that are working with us to try to keep these numbers down. We have a ceasefire unit that Director Moody created with Deputy Chief Flora, a ceasefire unit that specifically concentrates on shootings, shots fired, and homicides to try to arrest people as quick as possible before they escalate. So again, there's a lot of, when we're successful, there's a lot of fathers. If we were doing bad, it'd be me and the mayor standing up here by ourselves. But we're very pleased with all the teamwork everybody's putting in, and we're going to continue working like that and hopefully improve.
Yeah, let's change the slide over. Yes, next we're going to cover robberies with a weapon, aggravated assault. You'll see some of the trends throughout the city over here. Some of them are flat, some of them are slightly up. Some of them are up a little bit larger. A lot of that has to do with some of the bail reform and what we're seeing on recurring offenders. I'm going to pass that also over to Director Shea to talk a little bit more detail about the specifics around robberies, motor vehicle thefts, and some of the trends we're seeing in the city here.
Okay, I'll go crime by crime. Initially, our robberies and robberies with a weapon. Our robberies with a weapon are up slightly. Our robberies are down slightly, but not enough that you really would not enough that we're pleased with the results. We'd hope to be able to knock them down a little more. One thing we're happy about is when we dig into the data, the increase in robberies is predominantly and almost solely an increase in shopliftings, which then go bad when the shoplifter is confronted by a store security or a store proprietor. In the old days, when we looked into it, by the old days I mean when we started here, 2012, 2013, the shoplifters were very reluctant to do that because it increased the crime from a petty larceny, which they would be released on a summons, to a robbery, which they were usually kept in jail. But now with bail reform, the increase in the crime is not keeping them in jail. They're getting released almost immediately, even if they escalate it to a robbery. So we're seeing a lot more willingness to take the chance and escalate it and either shove somebody or threaten force against them. Anything like that increases that shoplifting to a robbery. So that's where we have a lot of work to do to try to figure out how we're going to address that. The aggravated assaults, the only thing I'd point out is as we change systems, the old system used to take out the domestic violence assaults and put them in a separate category. They shouldn't, so our new system reflects, you'll see a little jump from 2019 up to 2020, 2021, and 2022. That's because we're now keeping all of our aggravated assaults together as one number. So that kind of accounts for that. Again, we got a lot of work to do on aggravated assaults. We've put together, we're working on domestic violence. We're working on domestic violence with the prosecutor to try to intervene faster before something becomes an assault. We do, however, continue to encourage people, report any violence against you, domestic or otherwise, to us. We want the reports. We want to be able to try to help everybody. So we want to continue getting that message out there. And then you see criminal mischief, burglary, larceny, theft, motor vehicle theft, all up a little. And we're attributing that also to the effects of bail reform, which I'm agnostic on. I'm not saying it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it has resulted in the few people who commit these crimes being able to commit a lot more of them because they're not spending any time in jail. And what we're finding is we don't have a lot of criminals in Jersey City, which everybody who lives here knows. But the people we have, especially these petty criminals, they commit a lot of crime when they're out. Sometimes they walk around and every car they see that's unlocked, they open and try to steal what's inside it. And when they're being released immediately, when we catch them, it just increases their opportunities to continue doing those little petty crimes that really destroy the quality of life for everybody. So we're really looking forward to having conversations at the state level with seeing if there's something we can do about what we call persistent offenders. People who, even though the crime might seem like it's minor, it adds up time after time after time again, and they're destroying the quality of life for the people here in Jersey City.
I want to bring up our Director of Infrastructure here, Barka Patel. She's led an initiative around Vision Zero. Jersey City was the first city to adopt Vision Zero in the state of New Jersey. The results speak for themselves. This will be the first year that Jersey City will record zero traffic deaths on the Jersey City streets. It's significant progress. We've made a large investment in the problematic intersections just based on the data. More bump outs, more speed bumps, more road diets, and the results are clear: safer driving throughout Jersey City and ultimately saving lives. I want to turn it over to Barka, who's led this initiative for Jersey City.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. So like the mayor mentioned, we committed to the goal of zero traffic fatalities and severe injuries on city streets back in 2018, and we set a goal of achieving Vision Zero by the year 2026. It's really heartening to see that we've been able to achieve that this year on city streets as a direct result of the investments that the city has made in physical transformations of some of the highest injury streets that we know throughout the city. These are major corridors that experience very high speeds, very high frequency of people, specifically vulnerable users of our streets, pedestrians, cyclists, and transit users, experiencing traffic crashes, experiencing life-threatening injuries, and in certain cases, unfortunately, fatalities. Some of the improvements that we've made over the past few years since we committed to Vision Zero include installation of over 600 speed humps, restricting right turns on red lights at close to 200 intersections, a number of pedestrian plazas, street redesigns, protected bike lanes, and other facilities for those vulnerable users, traffic signal upgrades, specifically prioritizing pedestrian crossings at unsafe intersections, and countless other measures that we've partnered with multiple agencies throughout the city on to achieve this goal, and we look forward to sustaining zero in the years to come.
Next slide focuses on illegal guns coming off the street. 2022, you will see a slight decrease from 267 to 206. It's been a priority for us over the last couple of years. As you make inroads, at some point, the numbers will dip, which is positive progress. Again, I know Director Shea wants to speak on that. When we started this initiative 9 years ago, this was a big priority for us, and it continues to be a big priority with plainclothes officers doing a lot of hard work in some tougher areas in the city and making big inroads and doing it safely. So.
Yeah, we're cautiously optimistic about the dip in 2022 because it corresponds with the dip in violence, shootings, shooting victims, and homicides. So if we had dropped our gun confiscations but our violence had went up, we'd be disturbed. So we're cautiously optimistic that the years of concentrating on guns and confiscating them is maybe starting to pay off in less guns being carried out there. In addition, I want to give credit to, again, the police department's intelligence unit. Our investigations unit has completely vertically integrated their intelligence unit from people watching cameras, which we'll talk more about in a minute, to officers out on the street, to an immediate response, to being able to follow anyone suspected of carrying a weapon. And I think it has resulted in people being less willing to carry weapons while they're out there. We'll know more. I said before, we believe in trends, not 1 year, so we'll know more once we get a couple more years of data about how this trend is going.
Next, another big initiative for the City Council and our administration over the last couple of years has been the investment in cameras, CCTV cameras, and integration throughout the city. We've had a challenge over the years with getting witnesses to cooperate with us. CCTV cameras have made it much easier for us to get convictions. You've seen a large jump in 2019 to 2020. Part of that was integration of the Housing Authority and OEM into one system with the Jersey City Police Department. It gives us the opportunity to better track criminals throughout the city or potential crimes that could happen. And as a result of that, now we have a unit with police officers dedicated to monitoring this all the time. It's a seamless system, and it's helped on every aspect of law enforcement. I'm going to turn it over to Director Jim Shea, as this has been a big priority for him on investment in technology.
We're very proud of this, and it's a big success. We inherited systems that had been placed in commercial areas, were not where they needed to be. Working with Director Kearse from OEM, Director Moody from the police department, we did a complete study of historical crime in Jersey City, especially violent crime, and we began to buy and place cameras in locations that have been historically troubled by crime trends. And we're starting to see the payoff. It also worked, as the mayor mentioned, to our benefit in a couple ways. One, when we started here, solving shootings and homicides was notoriously difficult because people in the street who aren't involved don't want to get involved in those type of crimes. They're afraid, or they're reluctant to cooperate because they don't want to be involved. They live in that neighborhood, they know these people. It's very understandable. Now with the camera systems, we don't need them anymore. Now we can actually bring into a judge and a jury video many times of the crimes occurring and the people who did it. And the police department does a great job at bringing all that together with publicly available videos and putting cases together for our federal prosecutors and our state prosecutors that they can make arrests on these cases, including sometimes just shots fired. In addition, another benefit was with the national conversation around policing over the last 5 years or so, the police department under Director Moody and Deputy Chief Flora have been able to use these cameras to minimize police-citizen interactions, while at the same time, they kept the focus on the bad people carrying the guns. They used some of their best officers using these cameras to focus on people that are carrying these weapons, suspected of carrying these weapons, and many times the investigation can progress through the cameras without any need for an interaction between the people until we're sure they're carrying a weapon. So it's done a lot for our police community interactions. We're interacting with the bad guys more and with people who are not bad guys less.
All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about employees and the growth in the department, and then some budget numbers. So when we inherited the police department in 2013, the police department was 779 officers. Majority of it was white. It didn't reflect the diversity of Jersey City. We set off on a path to diversify the police department to better reflect the city that it serves. We did that by some concerted recruiting efforts modeled after military. and helping people through the academy and making sure that they knew all the steps of the application process, studying, and then getting through the academy. And today we're at 924 officers. We swore in a class yesterday of another 10 officers. And today the police department is majority minority, better reflecting Jersey City, and that is no small accomplishment and a testament to the City Council's commitment on this front. The fire department today is at the largest levels it's been in the history of the fire department. The last year was significant. You've heard Chief McGill speak about this numerous times. We've added companies, we repurposed old companies. We've changed the ranks and the supervision structure, enhanced supervision. And today, the fire department is at the largest level it has ever been. And we've been able to promote, again, there more diversity. We have our first female deputy chief, the highest ranking female in the state of New Jersey, promoted last month. And the narrative around the fire department continues to be a good one for the best fire department in New Jersey. I don't know if you want to add anything, as it falls under you as well.
That pretty much covers it. I'd just like to recognize Chief McGill, who's not here. He's on a well-deserved vacation, and Deputy Chief DiGiulio, who have been the prime movers in increasing the size of the department and increasing the capability to keep people protected. We inherited a department that, as Chief DiGiulio mentioned to me before, was down, had been allowed to go to dangerously low levels, and did not keep pace with the growth of the city. And we're very proud that we've been able to increase it to high-rise units and things that reflect Jersey City today.
Okay. Our last slide focuses on the budget and the budget growth. And this will give you a little bit of a picture. It speaks for itself from 2014 to 2022, where the investments are, more people, different type of personnel, more supervision. And this is really, as I said earlier, a thank you to the City Council for their unwavering support on that front. With that, we'll open it up for questions. Any specifics that you want to drill down on, we're here. If I can't answer it or Dr. Shea can't answer it, we certainly have somebody here who can. David Cruz.
Mayor and Director, if you could, I have a couple of questions, but on top is, both of you made reference to the bail reform of 14 or whatever it was, having an impact on an uptick in certain crimes. You're hearing a lot of that around the state, and particularly Democrats are talking about trying to reform the bail reform.
Mm-hmm.
A, do you think they need reforming, and how would you reform them?
Do you want to start, and then I'll talk about the policy?
I mean, every action has consequences. And I'll start by saying that there is no reason, I agree 100% with the concept that someone should not be in jail because they have less money available for bail than someone who has more money available. So that's the first thing. You're presumed innocent, you haven't had a trial yet, and I agree with that part. What I'm saying is that there is no question that it has had a consequence of lower level criminals being more emboldened and getting more emboldened as they discover the effects of bail reform, that they're not kept in for things they used to be kept in for. And we've seen them become more emboldened and more willing to escalate their criminal behavior because there's less immediate repercussions. That's the thing. There may be a long-term repercussion, but these are not people who tend to think in the long term. They tend to think of immediate repercussions, and there's less immediate repercussions. So there's no question there's been that effect. How to fix it? I think I've heard ideas from various people. I speak to the Hudson County prosecutor, who's very forward-thinking. Maybe faster criminal trials. Maybe if we don't want to keep people because we don't want to have them in jail waiting a trial, maybe we need to speed up. I know there's been some talk down in Trenton about increasing the number of judges, making the courts more efficient so we can get people to trial faster and have a more immediate result on these low-level arrests. But there's no question that a lot of these lesser crimes are committed by the same people doing the crime over and over again. We do not have, if we have 1,000 crimes, we don't have 1,000 criminals. We probably have 50 criminals doing it that many times each.
Well, while I haven't read the bills in Trenton that are being proposed, I am a supporter of some changes to the bail reform. I've been vocal about that. I think any mayor in New Jersey who deals with this day in and day out would say that. Yesterday, we had some of you at an event where we spoke about the shoplifting initiative that we have around the holiday season. We have 30 police officers roughly at the big box stores, at the mall, focused on shoplifting because it is a recurring crime, because there is no penalty associated with it. They'll arrest somebody, they'll be out the next day. And I think, as the director said, there needs to be some repercussions and some penalties associated with crimes, regardless of the degree of it. There has to be something that is associated with it. Well, I am a supporter of bail reform, is what I would tell you. I'm a supporter of bail reform, but I think that the current form of bail reform doesn't work for us here in Jersey City. I think we see the same people coming out.
None of these numbers are broken down by ward. Do you have a handle on what ward is having the most success and what ward is having the least amount of success in the crime rate?
Well, maybe it's better if we do it by precinct, because that's how district, how we look at it, as opposed to ward.
I mean, not surprising. We're getting the most success in our South and West District, but that's because that's where we started with the most number of violent crimes happening. So if they're happening there, that's where we can address them, that's where we can affect them, that's where we can bring them down. Where we're seeing problems in these lower level crimes, we're seeing it in the East and North, which does not have the violent crime problem, but has the problem of people breaking into cars, people stealing packages off porches, people taking a car that's left running outside a gas station or a grocery store, jumping in it and taking it for a ride. So I'd say we're seeing the property crimes and the lesser crimes increasing in the East and North. Now let's also note that's where our population is increasing the fastest, so there's more opportunities for those type of crimes. And we're seeing the violent crime decreases that we're proud of where the violent crime was happening, which was mostly in the South and the West. Let's remember, by the time the mayor and I took over, the violent crime problem in the North, which used to have one, had pretty much been tamped down by a couple big cases done by the feds, and it's never really arisen there again.
Anything else, David? No, I defer to him.
Is it a victory to say that most of the violence and the violent crimes are taking place in the South and West? That's been the case since forever.
Well, I think, yeah, there's a lot less. You clearly see that. I think that there's a lot of lives that are here today that maybe wouldn't have been here 5, 6, 7 years ago if the crime trends continued on that front. So is it a perfect scenario? No, of course not. We're not going to be satisfied until these numbers reflect zeros, but that's aspirational, ultimately. I think that we're making worse. I think that are there fewer guns out on the street? Look, here's what I would tell you. I think that the criminals are smarter about when and how they carry them because our police department is more aggressive. So there could be less guns out on the street at a given moment. Doesn't necessarily mean there are less guns in the city. But the guns ultimately not being in the person's hand that's looking to commit the crime at that moment is a win for us, because likely that crime will not happen. And that's a direct result of the police work. Yeah.
What's the conversation between you and state legislators when it comes to bail reform? It seems to be that one of the biggest issues affecting crime stats.
Senator Stack has been a proponent of reforming the current bail laws, and we speak about it, although I haven't read anything yet that they formally proposed, so I couldn't tell you about it.
Is there anything specific you're looking to see about the bail reform issue?
Look, I think that we've had some issues even around gun violence where there are people that are released in very, very short order. And I think the Jersey Journal has reported that there's a person, hypothetically, or there's factually, that has been arrested, then 3 months later again with a gun charge, right? And that is problematic. That speaks to kind of the current system that we have. Some of the property crimes and some of the car thefts, I think, is a problem as well. So I think when you look at those types of crimes, I'd like to see a little bit more aggressive penalties. Yeah.
Mayor, Director Shea, you talked about the impact you're having in the South and West districts in particular on violent crimes. Can you talk a little about the Gifford Foundation grant and how that will be implemented?
Not
Yeah.
familiar.
I'm not overly familiar with the details of it at this point.
City Council passed a resolution.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah. We could get back to you on the details of it.
Okay, and secondly, Mayor, do you plan on releasing the ComStat stats anytime
Well, we've expanded what's on the website. I think we've expressed this to you before with regards to violent crimes, and we're doing the updates here outside of every other category that's there. So I think we're going to continue on this path. I can't commit to on a weekly basis. No, I'm not going to commit to a weekly basis. I'm going to commit to providing the data in a transparent way that's very clear, being data-driven, but I'm not going to do it on a weekly basis because we look at larger trends over a longer period of time.
There was a female in the back had a question.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, can you speak on the trends of how it's looking to me like these numbers are very similar to what it was in 2019 prior to the pandemic? Can you just speak on that a little bit? If you're seeing that's this portion of the reason as to why those numbers have increased or any capacity? What I'm seeing like in terms of homicides and shootings,
That they went up and then came down?
2019, very similar to what we saw this year.
Yeah, so the question is, do we have any idea why they seem to jump up before we got them back under control? Yeah, if you coordinate, put those numbers together with what happened with the pandemic, with at one point our police department, I believe we had 1 out of every 3 officers was out sick or was out quarantined. At the same time, the bail reform hit and affected things. So for a while, and at the same time, they released a lot of people out of jail. For good reasons, to try to prevent the pandemic, from spreading any further. So we pretty much almost had a perfect storm of people being released that are dangerous to the community. And among the people that were released are some that were dangerous to the community. Less police available to deal with it because at the same time the police were also dealing with the requirements of the pandemic. And just the fact that everybody was home and more opportunities for these bad interactions to happen. And trends take off in the wrong direction, and you have to get them back under control. And I'm very impressed with the work the police department has done, getting their arms around those negative trends and trying to bring it back to where we had it before those things hit us. And I think that's where we are now.
And follow up to that, what do you think the biggest things are right now that you're still dealing with in terms of that fallback over the last few years to get to,
Yeah,
that trend?
I think, yes, we're still dealing with some of that. Let's be honest, we're still dealing with the results of some of the anti-police feeling in this country for obvious reasons, the murder of George Floyd, et cetera, et cetera. We're still dealing with less people wanting to become police officers. You saw we have more success hiring firefighters right now than police officers. Increased training requirements under Director Moody and the training thing. It's working incredibly for our citizens, but it takes time and it removes people from the police department. So there's a lot of negative things that we're still dealing with, but I'm very impressed again with the police leadership and how they're using technology, using those more highly trained officers to kind of beat back some of those negative effects. And I'm confident that this trend will continue next year.
Yeah.
Hi, yeah, Jordan Fulop from the Hudson Reporter, Mayor Director. So quick question. Yesterday, a bill was passed by the state allowing the concept or the idea of concealed permit, permits to be issued to conceal weapon carriers. Is the city planning on following that sort of plan, or do you guys have any set like ideals and that venue for permit to issue permits?
Follow the state. Yeah, I mean, we'll follow the state law like we always do. We are guided and controlled by the state law passed by the legislatures, and the Attorney General usually releases to the police leadership guidelines on how they want us to follow and conform to that law, and we'll continue to do that. So as the law changes, we look forward to the Attorney General letting us know what they expect from us in return.
So my question is, Jersey City will be what would that look like?
Pardon me?
Will be what?
What would that look like for you guys following those?
Well, I haven't read, I've only read reviews of the bill in the newspaper. I haven't had a chance to review it, so I don't know, but whatever they say is now the law of the state of New Jersey. We, as Jersey City and the police, will conform to it when we issue permits to applicants.
Any other questions? Yeah, John? Suites of domestic violence?
I have to get back to domestic violence. No,
Domestic violence? No.
no new. We haven't seen any increase uptick. We're actually a little. We'd like to see an uptick because if we're succeeding in getting out to people more, getting out to communities, getting them to work with us, we should see an uptick before we see a decrease based on our efforts. So We encourage everybody to report. We're trying to increase our domestic violence unit on our new precincts that we're building and in the new facility that Prosecutor Hudnut's doing. We're including rooms for domestic violence victims to make them feel more comfortable. We're training people on how to deal with domestic violence victims to make them feel more comfortable. The prosecutor has put a big investment into that. So we're looking forward to the success, but we haven't really seen either an uptick or a dip yet. They've been just pretty much level, and the problem is I think there's probably unreported. I'll talk about it. Yeah, I mean, as far as budgetary, it's like everything else we do. We measure, is there an expense? Of course there is. If we promote a cop to sergeant, we pay him more or her more. If we promote a firefighter to captain, we promote more. So we're very careful to make sure that we're doing it when it's necessary. And by necessary, I mean it increases the safety of the citizens of Jersey City and of the workers, our police officers and firefighters that we're sending out there to do, to do the jobs that are going to keep them safe. When we inherited it, there were days, and one of the first things the mayor and I talked about when we looked at the city we were inheriting, there were days in the policing out there when one sergeant would cover the south and the west district. That's physically impossible. You can't do it physically, and it's too much to ask one person to do and ask them to effectively supervise. We held meetings and knew we were going to have to make a major investment in increasing the levels of supervision to get up to what's expected in a modern American police department. Our internal affairs unit sometimes had sergeants interviewing people who outranked them. That's a bad practice, should not happen. So we increased supervision at a lot of levels. We increased it in training to ensure that our officers are trained correctly. There's a cost to it, and each time we say, is the cost worth it? Is the product we're giving the people of Jersey City for this cost worthwhile? And so far, I think the answer has been yes.
I'll start on it, and then we'll speak about it in more detail. First, on the budget front, every time we do supervisions, we do assess the impact to the budget. We recognize the fact that we're a very, very young police department. We've hired hundreds of police officers. Supervision is obviously very, very important. We've also changed our promotion structure. We've worked with the unions to create a clear table of organization. When people retire, the next rank gets promoted, and it takes a lot of the politics out of that and a lot of the arbitrary decisions. So we have structured that in a different way that wasn't the case before. With regards to overtime, it is a real conversation in the administration side and the city council. We've looked at what we've paid for some of the nonprofit and public events over the last year. It's a real conversation that we're going to have early next year on who should be bearing the cost of those sort of off-duty and additional overtime police officers that are part of those events. It ends up being millions of dollars additional in the budget, and that's going to be a conversation in January, February with the city council and try to find some reasonable middle ground on that.
Yeah, that's good. I think that covers everything.
Yeah, last question, David.
Ask the Greenville council person to answer this. We talk to people in the South, and they say that they don't feel safe. I wonder if that's what you hear when you talk to people in the South, and what do you say to them?
I would say that I think I hear that throughout the city, right? I think I hear that throughout the city. There's always going to be issues with crime and people wanting to feel safe. I hear the same thing from people downtown. Everybody wants to feel safe because things happen everywhere. As for Greenville specifically, I think that most residents have the feeling that they don't necessarily feel like they're being targeted, like they're going to walk out the door and feel like somebody's going to hit them over the head and rob them, but they don't want to be involved in any crossfire that might be an ongoing beef between certain areas. And I think we know what those pockets and those areas are, and we just have to do a better job of intervening and making sure that those pockets of violence in those particular areas are taken care of and covered. I think our police department has set up a lot of surveillance in those areas, and we do see that those crimes in those areas are going down. Is it perfect? No, but we're working every day.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out today. Really appreciate you taking the time. Anything else, David? That was it? Yeah. All right. Thank you all for coming out today. I really appreciate it. Thank you. And you all have the packets with the specific data. We could email it over to you if you guys need it. Thank you. Okay.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I am. Statewide.